Hi, everybody. This is Jocelyn. I have Katie Krieger back with me for part two on ghosted. This segment is going to be on how to successfully get what you want and what you need after you've been ghosted. So, in our welcome, Katie. First, I want to say thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. I love having you on. So, in our last segment, we talked about a guy that had ghosted Katie for about a month. She had asked me the question if I thought he was going to reach out to her, and he did. And she's going to talk a little bit about what she did with her own energy before he reached out to her. And then we're going to go into the actual conversation that they had. And then we're going to talk about what she's experiencing right now. So, Katie, when you and I ended our podcast, you took a lot of the information. You already had a lot of this information anyway, that we had talked about with people who ghost, right? Because you're dealing with people typically that have been rejected in their childhood
Mm,
by some caretaker very early on. So they don't really know how to handle intimacy, and intimacy can scare them. Communication can scare them because it's revealing their vulnerability. And when a child has been rejected or shut down by a parent, they typically have these neural networks that say that's not safe. And so they ghost. So,
mm,
for the most part, everybody, when you're being ghosted, you need to understand this is usually what this person has experienced. It's no excuse. You're not supposed to baby them or mother them or do any of those things. You're not supposed to feed that. You're actually supposed to teach new behavior in order to get what you want. So tell us what you went through internally and spiritually and in your mind before you actually heard from him.
mm. Yeah, it's such a good question. I really worked on the internal tape and reprogramming the tape that I have going, which, let's be honest, it tends to default into fear, excuse me, into worry, into what did I do wrong? Why am I inadequate? What's defective about me? Why am I not lovable? What did I say? Is, like I said to you, it felt like that moment in Clueless of what happened? Like, was the lighting bad? Did my hair go flat? And she finds out later
Mhm.
the guy's gay as the day is long, and it has nothing to do with her.
Mhm.
So initially, I went through that. And then the work now for me as a woman in her 30s is has nothing to do with you. Like, literally, if you look at the facts, there is nothing you did that would warrant him just not contacting you. Now, to be clear, because people have some, I guess, the technicalities around ghosting, I was not reaching out to this person and he wasn't responding. None of that was happening. I just hadn't heard from him. And and so just keep that in mind. But I kept telling myself basically, no, you're a goddess, you are a catch. You everything that you would tell someone that you love and that you believe in. I started telling myself that. It was very imperfect. It's easy to slip into old patterns because they've been hardwired for a long time, but it's a practice. So I kept practicing. I would listen to meditations about self love and self concept and building myself up, and also in it's very important to, if you tend to obsess, for me to do other things. So, and thankfully I have a career I'm very passionate about, and I have work and I have hobbies, and so throw yourself into the other things and be your own hype man, so to speak.
Mhm.
So that's that. Hopefully that was, I know that was a bit long-winded, but that was just to show you like the trajectory of, first the doubt kicks in, that's the default, then you got to go into the antithesis of that, which is absolutely not. Like, he should be so lucky, and he will call me because I know he thinks about me, and I know I didn't do anything wrong, and I know I'm on his mind, and he'll reemerge.
Exactly. So here's what happens energetically. Here's what happens. This is the unseen portion of that. So when you initially go into doubt, your focus is on them. It's not on you. You think that it's on yourself. But what you're
Mm.
really doing is you're projecting because you're thinking, what did I do wrong? Why is this person? And energy is, it jumps, it's connected to everything else. And wherever your focus is, that's where that energy goes, right? So there's all these, it's like this electrical charge. So it is a subconscious thing. But when you're intimate with somebody or when you've really connected with someone, even if you haven't been intimate with them, they can feel your energy and your attention. And so you went into doubt and you put your, what did I do wrong? And you put it there. Come on, you wanted him to contact you. Oh my God, I have to feel better about myself.
Mm.
And then you pulled your energy back into yourself because you realized, wait a second, I didn't do anything wrong. And so if you can look at it like when you are thinking about someone, you are casting your beautiful light around them and you're enveloping them in your thoughts, in your energy field. So they don't have to contact you because you're all over them. So visualize sucking that energy back into yourself and realizing, hey, wait a second, this is unacceptable behavior because you had actually told him what you wanted. You were not, it wasn't nebulous, it wasn't uncertain, it wasn't murky. You were really clear about establishing a relationship with him. And so when you take your energy back, they can't feel you anymore. When they can't feel you, that's when they reach out. But you have to give it time. And there was a wobble in there for you because I remember you were like, okay, so you're sure he's going to reach. And I knew he would reach out. All you had to do was your own work. You
Yep.
pull your energy back because you realize, oh my God, I'm giving this person my energy. You pulled it back. And then a few days later, you said to me, hey, he's looking at all my social media. And that's typically a pretty good sign, everybody, that somebody's thinking about you. And you still didn't do anything, which was really smart. You let him do all the work. And that gives you a little bit of a charge because you know, okay, they're thinking about me.
Mhm.
And then he reached out to you, and it was only 2 words. He said, hey, you. Right? And I think that's pretty flimsy, but I got to tell you, it was something. And I know how this goes. Look, we're not perfect. And, we could say, yeah, but he didn't, you know what? He reached out. Okay. And that was his way of connecting with you. I think that he knew when he said, hey, you. There was a little bit of a sheepish thing behind it because he didn't say, hey, how are you?
Right.
He didn't say, what have you been up to? He just said, hey, you. And that to me was okay, great. I knew he would do it. He was feeling you out, right? And
Mhm.
then you and I had a conversation, and I said to you, I think that you should tell him your truth. And we had talked about that in the last podcast.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was really clear on, and I want everybody to know, just because you're ghosted doesn't mean you never have to talk to that person or see that person, or you have to shut them off or shut them out. But what you do have to do is speak your truth. And so tell us what happened during the conversation. So Katie decided, I'm going to tell the audience really
Yeah,
quickly.
please.
Katie decided not to send a text message because you lose inflection in a text message. So she thought she had it perfectly planned. She would call him when he was on the set and she'd get his voicemail and she'd leave this great message because he'd hear the inflection. And instead, the dude picks the phone up. Hello? And she's like, oh my God, I got to speak my truth, which is something that Katie really needed to learn to do, right, Katie? Because you were talking about, I have to use my voice.
Yep.
So tell us about what, of course, it always puts you on the spot, but you know what? You had to stand in your fear, even if your voice shakes, you're shaking in your shoes. You had to do it.
Mhm.
And at the other
Mhm.
end, it feels pretty damn empowering, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, without a
Okay, so
doubt.
tell us what happened, and then we're going to decipher this conversation for everybody.
So I'm laughing because it's just, that saying like make if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's like we plan and God laughs,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I was like, okay, he answered on the first ring. And I knew it wasn't going to go quite as I had imagined, but I I did my best to say what I meant without being mean, say what you mean without being mean, right? And I do that because I know how I like to be spoken to if someone has an issue with me. And it's really attractive when you can convey your truth without being an asshole, frankly.
Right.
So
Right.
I just said, essentially, I said, look, I got to tell you, not hearing from you for what, nearly a month didn't feel good. And, I'm not delusional. I mean, I'm saying that as an aside here. Um, but I said to him, I know we're not exclusive. I know you're not my boyfriend. But when you spend time together and you go out a number of times and you enjoy each other and there's intimacy and you're in touch in the interim between dates and he's FaceTiming me and you're in contact, to suddenly have someone just drop off, it's hurtful and it's very confusing. Um, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that, is the bottom line. And interestingly, I don't know if you want me to jump into this, but his initial reaction.
Yeah, I want you to jump into it. Hmm.
So the first thing he said was, um, "Well, why do I have to be the one to hit you up? Why can't you call me?" And historically, yes, that has been something that maybe I could be better at potentially. I'm not good about initiating because I am traditional. But I also think a man likes to chase generally. They like to hunt. And and also he had been contacting me. So that was the pattern that was already set up.
Okay, there it is, right there. So
Mhm.
what he just said, I hear a lot, right? And the reason they have to have a response, that response was to put the responsibility back on you, right?
Mm,
Immediately. So because he was shocked. So you have to be prepared that the person is going to be shocked when you speak your truth, because I'm sure he was thinking you were like, hey, I really miss you. How are you? When
yeah.
instead you said, hey, that didn't feel really good. And so he stopped and he said, well, why didn't you text me first?
Hmm.
And the reason you said is because the pattern that we had established was you were always doing the pursuing. You were texting me, and I'm used to a man pursuing me. And you also told him that that's what you expected.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you made yourself really clear without, right? You didn't shut him down. And so now you have a bit of a conversation. And
Correct.
so what did he say when you said, because this is what I was typically used to, and this is what we had been doing? And isn't it funny that you immediately, by the way, as an aside, yourself aside and you said, well, I could be better at that. When the truth is that's not really what makes you comfortable. You want to see a
Yeah,
man pursue you.
I do. I
And that's
do.
okay to speak your truth. It's like we get things so messed up in this world because we try and put everything in a little box. And it's like, well, if you are an established woman and you're in your power, you'll text him. Not necessarily. You can be an established woman and in your power and say, I want him to chase me. Or you can chase them, or you can text them. You can do whatever you want. It's
Sure.
what works for you. And you said, this is what works for me. This is the beginning of a negotiation in a
Mhm.
relationship. Okay, so what did he say when you said that?
Well, he said, "What did you think? It's just the man's job?" And I said, "Well, maybe, yeah, I'm a little traditional that way, and I think I was the last person to make contact." And he said, "No." And again, I think the detail here is that we had an exchange. This just sounds like I'm 17, but over Snapchat but that I had initiated right after the last time we got together, and he responded right away. I responded back, and then, granted, I didn't ask him a question, but he never followed up, and still, he never said, "Hey, do you want to do something next weekend?" So
Yeah, for a month.
a
Okay, so
month.
sorry, there's no excuse.
There's not.
Right.
There's really not. And it that doesn't feel good. And I said, and then he came around and he was very apologetic. And he said, I mean, truthfully, like, I've just been working nonstop, and then on the weekends, if my friends call me, I just see them, and that's kind of been my life. And I said, I was very clear to say I never have a problem with people being busy or having other interests. That's very attractive. I love when a guy is into his career. I'm very into my career, but it doesn't mean you can't send a text. And I said, look, women want to know that you're thinking about them. We just do. And it's very easy to just say, hey, I'm at work, but just wanted to say hi. It's that simple. Um, and he heard me, and then his first thing was to say, well, then let's do something this weekend. And I said, well, look, if you want to do that, I'm going to leave that up to you. Basically saying, like, I'm not going to initiate. I'm telling you how this made me feel. If you want to show me the money, as it were, you show me in your
Right.
actions. And that's the bottom line, is you need to show me that you're hearing what I'm saying. And he said, well, I'm going to show you that I'm hearing you. And I said, and if you're not that interested, or you just stopped liking me, you should just tell me that instead of just ghosting. And he said, well, that's not what happened. I always have a wonderful time with you. And I said, but I'm not a mind reader. How would I know that if I'm not hearing from you?
And he also said to you, "Oh, wow, has it really been that long?" Which was like
Right.
the worst thing that he could say. Because it basically says you weren't on my mind, right? He just grasped at straws because
Yeah.
he knew it had been time. And he obviously reached out to you because he wanted to see you, because he had said to you, well, how about we get together this weekend? And
Hmm.
what we have to be careful of is women is rushing back into that and thinking, okay, now I spoke my truth, and now we're going to spend the weekend together and everything's going to be okay. When we know better than that.
Hmm.
You see, it's our desire to have their attention and to have them in our energy field and us in their energy field and connect with them because they feel something, right? There's a void that's filled. We feel loved, we feel connected, we feel because intimacy for us does so many things, right? Because of our nurturing natures.
Hmm.
And so each person gets something different from it, whether, no matter what you ascribe to, we get that. And what I mean is LGBTQA, I don't care what you are. It's the physical contact as human beings and the softness of that energy that keeps us connected. And it's a desire, right? Because I'd like to say it's a need, and it is a need, but it's also a desire. And
Right.
so jumping into seeing that person and going right back to where you were is probably not the smartest thing.
No.
And so we're talking about smart dating. Okay. So you go out with somebody, you establish a connection with them, things are going well, you get ghosted, you initially look at yourself, you suck your energy back in, you realize your value, pull all your energy back. And you can even do that through a meditation. And
Mm.
then the person contacts you, you have a conversation with that person. This is the way this made me feel. They typically are going to go, oh my God, I didn't mean to do that. Hey, do you want to get together? Because that's why they contacted you anyway. They
Right.
want to see you.
Right.
Okay. And so now you're in another conundrum, right? Because you're trying to be smart.
Yeah.
And what you really want to do, because we're programmed for it from society, is we want to get back into that and feel it, because we feel if we give them everything we've got, they're gonna love that, and they're gonna connect with me, and everything's gonna be okay. But the truth is that when you give them all of your really great energy and they feel it, they've got their fill, right? And then they can
Hmm.
go on their merry way again.
Hmm.
You have not solved your problem. So the other part to the problem is being able to see them and communicate with them without giving something that you're really not ready to give.
Yeah.
And the war begins when our brain begins to fight itself. And part of us is saying, if I sleep with them and I'm intimate with them, I'm going to be giving them something and they're going to love me. When the truth is, that's the antithesis of what you could do, that if you want to do that. And we all slip up and we do that anyway. But we still have to set our precedent. So whether you sleep with them or not, you still have to be very clear with them. You need to know that I need to go a little bit more slowly with you. I'm still really attracted to you. I want to spend time with you. You may even sleep with them, but you need to know that I'm still coming off of being ghosted, right?
Right.
And so you have to hold a part of yourself back. You have to know that whatever it is you are doing, right? The better thing to do is to hold part of yourself back, because if you walk into it 150% and they ghost you, you're going to feel like, geez, I should have known. What an
Right.
idiot. Why did I do this? You see, he just used me. And you get all, then you start stacking stuff on that.
Yep.
And instead, you have to say, I am making a conscious choice to sleep with him because this is what I need. I need this connection. And if he does ghost me again, that, you know what, that's on me. Okay.
Exactly.
Or I'm going to go into this and I'm going to be a little bit more cautious. And if he still ghosts me, I'm going to be okay.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, you took your power back and you know you're going to be okay. So your energy shifts. So now you're coming from a different place because you're empowered, right?
Exactly.
You're choosing, I'm going to sleep with you or not. I'm going to get to know you better or not. And you're able to look them in the eye and say, I spoke my truth. And if you really find value in me, and the other thing is, I need to ask myself if I find value in you,
Yeah.
because you have an issue here. We all have issues,
Hmm.
but ghosting, that is probably one of the hardest things to be ignored by somebody that we've been intimate with. No
Terrible.
words makes our minds go absolutely nuclear,
Yep.
and we spin out of control. So what you're doing is you're taking control back. You took control back when you grabbed your energy back and they couldn't feel you. And now you need to do that when you get to know them. You are not my priority. I'm my priority.
Hmm.
And so I'm taking care of myself, knowing fully that I like you, I connected with you, I want to engage with you, or I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm taking responsibility for my actions, which means if you do see them and you drink too much and you feel foolish, I mean, come on, you've got to take control of your life, right?
Hmm.
And so drinking too much and sleeping with them and saying stupid things, you have to take responsibility for that. Those are
Totally.
things but let's just erase all that and let's just talk about where we are now. So he started texting you and staying in communication with you. And before we started the podcast, you said to me you were feeling a little bit wonky. And it was because you hadn't heard from him. And the COVID thing. I mean, everybody is reeling from the elections and COVID-19 and being in lockdown for so long.
Ugh, I
Right.
know.
And we do need human interaction. That is part of being human. And so being isolated can be really difficult. So when you don't hear from him, and it was a pattern, right? He would do it in the morning and then he would do it at night.
Right.
And so when you notice, you wake up in the morning and you look at your phone and it's 11 o'clock and you're used to hearing from somebody at that time. We typically have something that happens inside of us energetically. It's a little bit of a shock. It's like, oh God, you get a lump
Mm.
in your throat. Are they going to contact me? This is part of pulling your energy back again.
Hmm.
Instead of giving that away, instead of going, shoot. And the next thing you know, you're looking at your phone every 20 minutes.
Ugh, that's
You
not fun.
need, no, you need to put your phone down. You need to put your thoughts down, right? This is where I tell people do a visualization for a moment and realize that when you become anxious or worried that this is not going to happen, oh my God, he's doing it again. You're
Mm.
sending energy out of fear and worry. And if you could imagine a cloud of atoms, circling your head, those thoughts, okay?
Mm.
And they're these sparkly little pretty things. And you realize that what you're thinking is creating all of this feeling in your body and it's sending them a message. If you lift your hands up over your head and you gently pull all of those thoughts all the way down, right to your feet, and it's a visualization that we do, and you send and you keep pressing down that energy and those thoughts into the core of the earth. And the core of the earth is really far down.
Mm.
And I've learned this through Chinese medicine, and I'm sure there's many other modalities that use this. But the earth, if you shove things in, no, I don't mean shove things, but if you press that down, send it down into the core of the earth, it cleanses. Right? So
Mm.
it's a visualization and a meditation that we do. And it literally takes a second. What do? You realize what's going on. You realize what you're feeling. You put your mind into the core of the earth. You connect with it, right? With your mind. And then you don't even have to reach up, but it helps, right? Because you can press the energy down into the core of the earth, and the earth will take it and cleanse it, right?
Love that.
And so we're cleansing your own thought energy and your fear, and we're going to turn it into trust.
Mm.
You see? And
Mhm.
because you have to change your thoughts in order to pull the energy back so the person goes, oh, I don't feel her. And it could be maybe they had to get up at 6 a.m. and do whatever they had to do. Or maybe they're having a little bit of a, oh, I'm falling back into that. And then they contact you later that day or the
Sure.
next day. The problem is that we put so much value on somebody contacting us or not contacting us that we're giving our power away
Mhm. Mhm.
to a text,
Yeah.
to somebody going, hey, you.
Yeah.
When we look at that, think about that, this device that we all hold in our hands, and somebody goes, hey, you, and it makes the difference between having a good day and a bad day. Fuck
Right.
that.
Fuck, that is right. And, Justin, you and I talked about this, that having these triggers, like if you're really triggered by someone ignoring you, or you're really triggered by whatever it is, fill in the blank, everyone has their own experience and bag of
Mm-hmm.
trauma, lean into that. Like my coach has said to me,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, I love that you're triggered. And I'm like, fuck that. Why? Because this is where the growth happens. This is where the character development happens. I mean, I sound like an actress, but it's true. It's like this is the fodder to make you a more resilient, and I don't mean resilient like hardened, but confident, and confident in your vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
and more in faith. Just having faith in yourself. And so I got to look at, okay, I'm getting triggered by someone not reaching out, and I'm making it mean a whole slew of things about me, that it's a personal injury, right? It's like a narcissistic injury. And it doesn't have to do with me, but why is it triggering me? And like, look at the root of that. Why is this such a trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I
Mm-hmm.
said to you, I don't want any of this. And this is really what I hope the audience takes away from this too. Whoever needs to hear it is, this isn't about what they're doing. This is about what it affects in me, right? And what it affects in you. And how do
Exactly.
I take the power back?
One of the first things we need to learn to practice is with friends, okay? So, one of the things that I really learned early on was when I was really having a struggle. I would reach out to people and I would vomit out whatever was going on.
Mm,
And I literally can tell you, and I saw it like this, and I still do. It was like God would be like, Guess what? Nobody's going to answer their phone for you because you need to sit in your own issues and look at that. And it was like a voice would say that to me, and I would stop and
mm,
I would say, oh my God, you're right. I'm just going, and why am I vomiting this out on other people? But I wasn't doing anything to change it, right? So
mhm.
I began to change, leaning on other people to get their approval or for them, and just stopped
Right.
because it was literally taking away from me being productive, right?
Mhm,
And the
mhm.
next thing that I learned was people that were doing that to me and weren't really interested in me, right, as a friend, and they just wanted all of my attention and what I could give them, I started to push those friendships away because I began to realize, just like you're realizing about him, and it's different, and it helps you when you are able to say no. You can still love somebody, but you have to push them 5 blocks away. When you are able to say no, when somebody ghosts you, you stop and you say, it hurts the first day or two or three. And then you go, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Right.
Are you serious? Okay. And I might reach out to them and say, hey, because I want to get a beat on where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they can respond or not respond. And if I'm not feeling, and this can even be with friends, if I'm not feeling that back, I let it go. And the funny thing about letting it go is they always come back around. And then I'm able to speak my truth and say, if it's a friend, hey, I noticed that you were probably busy, but this is what happens for me. I don't feel like you're reliable. When you tell me you're going to do something, it works like this. And if
Right.
you're on a date and somebody ghosts you, you're able to say to them, just like you did, hey, that didn't feel really good. When you do that, I don't connect with people and get intimate with people and have them do that without them telling me what's going on. When you give someone the opportunity to tell you, well, I was in a relationship that I wasn't finished with and I went back to that,
Mm.
or you can listen and you can understand and you can give them another chance if you would like to. But like I said, the difference is walking back in as a different human being, saying,
Right.
I don't accept this behavior from people, but I think you're valuable enough to give you a chance because what you told me and what you said to me, I can relate to. We're not really great at communicating. I'm going to give you another chance. And you watch.
Mm.
And you don't run in and say, this is it. I know we're going to do it. Because again, when you're giving too much of yourself, it's overwhelming to people that ghost you.
Mm.
Remember, people that ghost have a hard time dealing with those emotions. They were rejected. You don't push
Mm.
on somebody rejecting you, right?
That's
Persistence
interesting.
creates resistance
Mm.
in those circumstances.
Interesting.
We have to pull back and get silent and be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't attack him. And I
Mm-mm.
thought that was really important for everybody. You were very kind and you spoke your truth.
Yeah.
And you are being really honest about, hey, I didn't hear from him. And that's kind of scares me
Mhm.
because I'm afraid, God, I put myself out there, but empower yourself. I told him exactly how I felt. He's showing me right now whether he can do it or not. And if he can't, I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, I think you're awesome. I just don't think you're ready.
Yeah. And you look, the end of the day, all we have control over is how we behave and
Mhm,
our side of the street, right? And
mhm,
I got to tell you, and maybe I mentioned this on the first podcast, but I think it's really important. And I say it out loud to remind myself too, because it's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to expose yourself. It is.
mhm,
But whenever I tell somebody how I'm feeling, even if it hurts, even if it's scary, even if I'm afraid, I always feel better and more empowered afterwards because there's something about leaving no stone unturned that gives you
mhm,
peace of mind, frankly.
mhm,
And now I
mhm,
can go, hell, I told him how it is. I did it lovingly. I was not accusatory. I didn't attack. And
mhm.
beyond that, it's out of my hands.
Yes, that is a very powerful way to handle this because you are letting this flow right out of
Mhm.
your life.
Mhm.
And if it comes back, it comes back, but you've already set a precedent of what you are willing to accept or not accept. And so it isn't, oh my, you're not grabbing anymore. You're not holding on tight. You're not worrying and you're not in fear.
No.
You're letting go because you're saying, this person isn't going to give me what I want. And you can decide to be in a relationship with somebody who isn't going to give you what you want. You can do that, but you've got to be honest with yourself. They're not giving me what I want, but they're good for right now. I have people tell me that all the time.
Right.
I need to do this. I don't want to be alone. Okay. But you need to know that you could suffer if you put too much into thinking that they're going to give you what you want. If you can flow with it, sometimes intimacy and a relationship can be developed in the long run, right? But
Mm.
you're only going to know that based on their behavior and if their behavior changes. And their behavior changes when you change. You see, you changed, right?
Mm.
And so now you have to suck all your energy back again and you have to let him show you. And you have to allow yourself to be available too, because he has to know that. Okay. And then we're going to see the result. So I hope that this podcast has helped people. Part two, it's like how to successfully get what you want and need, right? By speaking your truth. And maybe Katie and I are going to do a part three and we can actually tell you how this worked out. And I think that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks,
All
Joss.
right. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for having the time, or taking the time, I should say, to join us and tell your story. It's been really enlightening, I think, for everybody. And
Hmm.
do you have anything else you want to add?
Just one last thing, and I really it's about wanting you to comment on it. In terms of letting things go, letting them just okay, let's see where the chips fall. Are you of the belief that you can also just intend for what you want to have happen? I mean, in terms of manifesting?
If you say let the chips fall where they may, I would hope that you had set an intention first.
Aha.
Because when you set an intention about what you want, it's like saying this or something better.
Mm.
If you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, right? A lot of times you're going to get a very awkward outcome because you have to whittle down that square peg to fit into the round hole. And so you can have exactly what you want by manifesting. But in order to get that, it's you that has to change. It's your beliefs that have to change. You can't be fearful that this person isn't going to give you what you want. You have to be able to state with absolute certainty, I always get what I want.
Love it.
Okay. And I know that this is my intention that I'm going to set. He's going to call or he's going to text. He's going to consistently communicate with me and he's going to consistently show me through his behavior that he loves me and he cares about me. He will. I know that.
Beautiful.
I can feel it because
Mm.
you don't accept anything less. You see what I'm saying? The
Mhm.
problem is it's not controlling another person. It's not about putting it on them. It's about what's going on inside of you. It's about owning that, right? And so you own that feeling. You live in the end, right? That's the most powerful thing. Living in the end is everything. It's the knowing that you're going to have that end of story and you don't talk about it to people. It's
Mm.
yours. You own it. So, in other words, if I were in your position, if I really gave a shit enough, because,
Yeah.
I would think, oh God, how much work is this person?
Right.
Right? You'd have to really connect with me in order to get me past, this ghosting thing. And
Sure.
and yeah, if it was worth it, I'd say, you know what? People have their issues, right? So I have my issues. So let's see what happens. But this is what I would say. I would set an intention that, and it would literally be, I always hear from him.
Mm.
I hear from him all the time. He shows me how he feels all the time. And I would feel it and I would live it. And I literally wouldn't let anything else in. And I would feel what that feels like. And from that feeling, we create. It's not thinking, it's feeling. So
Mm.
we get what's going on in the brain into the feeling. You see, and people go, how do you do that? I had a girl that did a visualization and she was, I haven't heard from this guy for 3 weeks. So I told her, suck all your energy back because she was the one that I saw her solar plexus was, literally
Oh,
putting all this yummy energy all over this guy. He didn't have to do a thing.
right.
She sat down. It literally took her 15 minutes. She pulled the energy back, feeling so good about what they had and how it felt to be together that she cried during this meditation.
Mm.
And then she set the intention, let it go. 30 minutes later, she texted me and she said, we're having lunch today. He contacted me because, do you see, she cried. She felt
Mm.
it. So you don't have to cry. But
Right.
what I'm saying is, you have to feel it so strongly and powerfully. You have to connect with that feeling or a memory that gets you into a state of mind. The state of mind creates the reality. If you have a
Mm.
shitty attitude, you usually have a shitty outer life, right? If you feel good about yourself, other people feel good about you. They respond really positively to you for the most part, right?
Mm.
If you're fearful, you're going to have anxiety and you're going to attract people that are anxious. You see what I'm saying? Your state of mind is reflected in your reality.
So interesting. Thank you. That
Right.
because I think it's all very this all this stuff is integrated with each other.
Right. So a lot of the reason you pick people that ghost you, right, are
Uh-huh.
underlying issues about, either your own intimacy issues,
Mhm.
about being too close with people, about being scared. Because when you look in the mirror, what you see is what you are and what you're not.
Mhm.
That's what's so interesting. If you think about what I just said, seeing what you are, what's there, and what isn't there.
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to outweigh what's there with what isn't there, and right, and create that. And you can do it. You can literally create whatever you want, but you have to get into that state. And actually, just so the audience knows, Katie and I are going to do a podcast on creating the state because she's a professional actress. She knows the ins and outs of getting into a state, right? And so if you can actually manifest this state, Katie, it would be an interesting podcast to see and show the audience. When I created a character of a girl who had a guy who gave her exactly what she wanted, right? You see
Mm.
what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's not about focusing on him. It's always about focusing on you. It's not grabbing outside. It's not, oh my God, this is what it's like, no, this is my energy. And this is what always happens for me. I always have guys all over me that love me, that I love. It's always like that.
Love
And
that.
I know women and men that do that. They put themselves on a throne like they are a god, and they have their
Mhm.
own problems. They fall into old behaviors. And you know what they do? They
Mm.
get right back into that state and they don't budge for 2 weeks. It all changes.
Beautiful. I love
Hold your
that.
energy, hold your intention. You'll get what you want, but it's inside, not outside.
Inside.
Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. We went way over time, but I hope that you get something out of it. And Katie, thanks so much. And thank you for adding that last tidbit
My
too.
pleasure. Thank you, Jocelyn.
All right, everybody, thanks. Please like this podcast. And if you want to subscribe, please subscribe. And we appreciate it if you would share it. All right, bye bye.